Part 97. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 971. Xiao Menju heard and glared at the man. The man was cruel and ruthless and did not care about her life. But it didn't want her to die. The smell in her body was so good, even if the smell that wrapped her was stinky and rotten, it still liked her so much. It doesn't want her to die, it must not let her die. Little Menja jumped away from the man's body and murmured towards the man, "Hurry up and save her. If you don't save him, I will continue to beat you." The man got up, his face turned grey, but for a moment, he regained his usual appearance, except that the fox fur coat on his body had long disappeared, and was replaced by a white suit. The black sword in his hand slowly condensed. He rose into the air, using the sword as a pen, and using the blood on his wrist as a symbol to draw the entire lost land. The scarlet rune was hit on the ground layer by layer and into the ground. The wind and sand on the ground was bigger, and the strands of magical air twisted and wanted to resist, but immediately retracted into the ground. Men have been repeating such actions all the time, but the magic of the ground not only has not been suppressed, but the riots are even more powerful. The lost land is shaking, as if it were held in the hands of someone. The wind and sand are all around, completely indistinguishable. The man suddenly yelled in the direction of the little cute beast, "Give me blood." Xiao Menju watched the man use the blood on his own arm, and immediately he understood what the man meant. This guy must be replaced with blood that wants it. Although he was scared to think of bleeding, but when he thought of it below the ground, the little cute animal gritted his teeth and rushed to the man in a few steps. Although he was afraid, he reached out his paw and gave it to the man. The man grabbed Xiao Meng's arm, but his hand turned and pinched Xiao Meng's neck in the next moment. The black sword in his hand penetrated into the heart position of Xiao Mengbei in an instant. In the surprised and angry eyes of Xiao Meng beast, the man's long sword suddenly pulled out again, and the blood of Xiao Meng beast's blood splashed around this lost land like a scattered girl. The sharp scream of magic gas sounded, and the lost land turned more and more away. It's almost as if oil was poured into the fire. Not only did it not extinguish the fire, it made the fire more fierce. The man's hand tossed Xiao Meng's neck away, one hand printed, and the other held the black sword to continue drawing the blood signs. The whole black sword was covered with the blood of Xiao Meng beast, but the man continued to drip the blood on his arm toward it. The dense sand seemed to have wrapped him in it. Faintly, there were all kinds of sharp hissing sounds. The voice was low, but it could penetrate people's hearts and enter the souls of people. It was shocking and frightening, and they wished to cover their ears and run away. The crowds of gods have stood outside the lost land. They waited for this day, they had waited for a long time. For a long time, the fear of swallowing the heavenly beast has penetrated the bone marrow. But on this day, when people heard the movement of the lost land, the people of all ethnic groups dispatched the elite almost immediately, and they appeared around the lost land in a hurry. The dense crowd surrounded the lost land. They were all holding weapons in their faces, staring at the direction of the lost land with absolute expression. Ready to fight. Fight for the homeland, fight for the clan, fight for their blood descendants. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 972. Even if you know that you are not good enough to swallow the heavenly beast, none of the people in the divine world flinch at this moment. The ascension was a scapegoat before, but now the ascension can't stop it, they can only stand up on their own. The seal of the lost land is getting weaker and weaker, and as a result, everything in the lost land is completely visible to everyone. Their great gods and Buddhas, who were soldiers and soldiers alone, were blood-stained and reinforced their seals. Their eyes were all staring at the sky above the lost land. One by one, holding his breath, he was nervously watching every move of the Lord Buddha. They were extremely frightened, and when they saw the Lord Buddha, they immediately tightened their weapons like chicken blood and were ready to rush up. Continuous bleeding and mental effort, the man's lips were not bloody, and looked very fragile, as if they would fall into the yellow sand and shake in the next moment. He has been printing, and has been drawing symbols. The blood symbols that can be penetrated into the sand are getting weaker and lighter, and even some of them cannot be penetrated into the sand, and can only be covered on the sand. In this wind and sand, there are countless blood charms flying in the wind. I don't know how long, the movement in the man's hand slowed down, and in the end, even the black sword in his hand disappeared into his body. His eyes stared at the ground blocked by the yellow sand. The rumbling sound sounded, and the entire ground of the lost land seemed to be rolling. In the deafening voice, the subtle sound of the seal of the lost land was not heard. The man's pupil narrowed slightly. The entire lost land seemed to have been turned upside down, and yellow sand pervaded every corner, and everyone could not see what was going on inside. This situation lasted for a long time, 2 days a day, January 2 months. For so long that everyone was outside the lost land, they even raised the illusion that they would become fossils. After a day or so, the lost land was full of wind and sand, and finally there was movement again. In fact, in the eyes of ordinary people, it is not much different from before. However, those who cultivated high could feel that the black magical energy was digging out of the yellow sand. A trace of ground, like a thin cloud line, entered the sky, and merged with the sky and disappeared. It is completely invisible to the naked eye, let alone intercept and kill these magical chi. Several great elders of the divine realm are all in one place. They are strong in spirit, and as a result, they can see clearly the movements in the lost land. I was about to discuss with each other whether to take a shot or not, and I was tumbling and roaring in the lost land, and suddenly quieted down. Flying dust also slowly returned to the ground. At the same time, a cloud of black magic suddenly rushed towards the sky. They saw that the figure of Lord God and Buddha also followed the black group. The black and black magic air turned into a woman in black in the sky. The woman seemed to have lost all her strength and fell quickly towards the ground again. People with sharp eyes saw the woman's face and immediately recognized it. This was the witch tied to the devil's table some time ago. They thought that Lord Buddha would continue to fight the witch for 300 rounds. However, he did not expect that the Lord Buddha looked at the witch who continued to fall, and after a moment of pause, he immediately fell. Then, when she was about to land, she opened her hands and hugged the witch in her arms. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 973. An adult and Buddha in white holding a witch in black was too conspicuous. The two descended from mid-air, the powerful clothes of the aura flew up, and they really inhaled the eyes. What most surprised everyone was that Lord God and Buddha hugged the witch and flew a few laps in the air before landing on the ground. It's almost like posing. It can also look great. Everyone can't wait to rush up and crush the witch into a corpse, and then turn himself into the man in the arms of the Buddha. If they can be held by gods and Buddhas, they feel like they have become witches and broken bodies. This piece of lost land, which was supposed to be covered by wind and sand, became a sea of flowers in the sky at the next moment. Without the wind and sand, without the dust of the sky, there is nothing to swallow the beasts and demons. In the eyes is a gorgeous and beautiful sea of flowers. The man fell into the sea of flowers holding the song, and he was still in a spotless white suit, still with star brows, staring eyes, and a big bald head. But his face was different from usual. There was a dark mass at the center of his eyebrows. Looking at it, the dark mass looked like a small tree. He could even see the trunk, the branches, and the leaves. Obviously small, but each branch is extremely clear. Yanji nested in his arms, staring at the little tree on his brows. For a long time, she asked, "Why do you hold me like this?" In the presence of the entire divine realm, he fluttered in the air and landed like this. Pretend to be extreme. She doesn't think this man is such a temper. The man stared at Yanj, but did not speak. He bowed his head slightly, waiting for the last step in her process to kiss him. But obviously, this last step, he could not wait. Yanji had long forgotten what she had said to him before. Yanj tried to get out of the man's arms, but his hands clasped her waist and hugged her tightly without intending to let her go. Yanji could only ask him, "Why do you have a tree in your brows?" The man still didn't respond. He dropped his head slightly, and looked at her eyebrows. Everyone who stood outside the Lost Land was frightened by the scene, stood still and couldn't believe the scene in front of them. But, Lord God Buddha, why didn't Lord God Buddha let go of the witch? Lord God and Buddha, let go of that witch, let us hug you. However, the mood is more complicated than that of the elders of several clans, all of whom are staring at men with complex expressions on their faces. Yanj reached out to touch the little black tree totem on the man's forehead. Xiao Mengxiao suddenly got out of the sea of flowers, and whimpered in the ears of the words. Yanj hurriedly withdrew his hand, broke free from the man's arms, and rushed towards the little cute beast. Just before, I saw the sword wound on Xiaomen's chest. She wanted to reach out and help it heal, but Xiao Mengxiao avoided her hand and hummed her head with her head. I seem to be dead. He was dug away. It hurts, it hurts. Regardless of its resistance, Yanj put his palm on his chest. Really lost heart. That man, dug into the heart of Xiaomeng beast? Yanji turned his head and stared at the man. The man had come to Yanji's side, and he reached out his hand, sending out a light soft white light over his chest. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 974. Under the shroud of the man's white light, the wounds on Xiaomen's chest were all right, without any trace. But Xiaomenju didn't think he could be hurt? His foreclaws and his tail hugged the thighs of Yanj, and he cried sadly while still holding his waist, "I am going to die." He said he would bring me something delicious, but I can't eat it now. Eating is very important, but Xiaomenju thinks that if he wants to die, he must die on the woman, so that he can return to his soul. But this kind of thought, at this time it didn't understand it, only the thought that she was going to die and died on her was very strong. Yanji reached out his hand, and pinched a tuft of hair on the head of Xiaomeng beast. "Are you really going to die?" The little cute animal nodded again and again, gritted its teeth. "The bad guy dug my heart." Yanj ignored it and asked, "Do you want something delicious now?" Little cute beast nodded again and again. "Of course, I think, very much." Yanj looked at it, and her voice was softer. "Then tell me where those people went, and I will give you delicious food now, so that you will be satisfied when you are dying." Xiaomeng beast screamed with a grievance, "Really, can we really eat? When this guy talks about eating, he is not afraid of death." The big watery eyes are bright, and Yanji feels his eyes are almost blinded. He nodded again when he saw the song, and then tilted his head and grew his mouth. Obviously it is so big, and its mouth is a little cherry red, which is very beautiful. But now, his mouth kept widening, and his mouth was almost bigger than his head. The next moment, one after another rolled out of its mouth. The number of words is counted, only 40. She asked, "What about those people before?" Many more were sent in. Xiaomenju was aggrieved, "Only this point, the previous ones have been dragged to the ground." It finished speaking, and then dragged Yanji's legs. "I'm dying, I lied to you, what are you going to give me?" Yanji then asked the 40 astonished ascendants, "Did you have any mustard space? Give it." Among the 40 people, there were the 10 people who had suffered with Yanj last time, and Zi rushed to Yanj for the first time, holding the sleeves of Yanj with joy and excitement. These people escaped from the dead and heard the words of the song. Although they did not understand the situation at hand, they immediately took out some spare food from their mustard space and put it in front of the devouring beast. In fact, if they have reached the level of immortality, they will not eat food at all, but before each ascension, they will prepare some in the mustard space to prevent various accidents after the ascension. At that time, they can still eat a bit. No. Each of these 40 people took out some food and piled it up in front of the little cute beast, which was similar to a small hill. Xiao Meng's tail is swaying up and down, and he can't even care about his words. He immerses himself in eating, and his mouth can open up infinitely as soon as he eats. The small hill-like food was completely eaten by it after a while. And its belly did not even bulge. Touching his own belly, Xiao Menju walked in front of Yanj in 3 steps and said, "I'm not full, but I feel like I'm going to die. Oh, you hold me, I want to die in your arms. After my death, the villain blackened again." Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 975. Xiao Meng's words fell into the size of a cat and jumped on the chest of Yan Ji. Yanj reached out and hugged him in time, and prevented him from patting his chest with his paw. She didn't want to be beaten by this guy's paw in front of so many people. The little cute beast slammed, closed his eyes stupidly, and murmured, "I am really going to die, my eyes won't open, I am dead." When the words fell, the eyes really closed, and the snoring sound of Zhentian sounded at this time. Yan Song looked up and matched the man's gaze. Several elders in the divine realm have surrounded their gods and Buddhas. What are they saying? The faces of the gods and Buddhas are indifferent, and they can't see the slightest expression. When they sing and look to him, he also speaks singing. When Yanj was about to avoid his eyes, he nodded slightly towards Yanj and even smiled. Although the smile seemed to disappear immediately, and immediately he turned his head to talk to the elders, but the song seemed to be chopped by Tianlei, and half a moment couldn't reflect from the gentle and incomparable smile. So shocked that this guy would laugh. Yanj is covered with goosebumps. How do you feel that this guy suddenly has something wrong? Is it Julu who is leading his body now, or is it the so-called magic heart? Yanj stepped in front of the ascendants. Although everyone experienced this, they were not afraid. Several people were exchanging information, while 10 people including Zi were practicing during this time, so that they could be ascended in a while. They can also play a role when fighting with people in the divine realm. Everyone already knows that they are saved by Yanj, and thank you immediately when Yanj comes over. Yanj asked them about their condition, and when they left, were there any companions in the place where they had been imprisoned before? After a few words, I suddenly noticed that everyone was silent, and Yan Ji looked at him, and the man had stood by her side. The rest of the divine realms retreated under the leadership of the elders in each tribe. Although some people were curious looking in this direction, no one stayed. Yanj said to Julu, "I will take the ascenders out of the realm of God and return to their former place. This divine realm is too exclusive. The ascendants have ascended into small worlds. Most of the small worlds will rob these ascendants into their own martial arts, and they will treat the ascenders as citrons. Everyone has never encountered a small world like divine realm." The words of the words and Jew delusion are also one-sided declaration of war. If the people of the divine realm want to stop the ascendants, she will take the lead to overthrow the divine realm. The surprise song was that Jew delusion only nodded slightly after hearing it, saying, "I have sent all the ascendants who are detained by them to this place, and the boundary lake from the kingdom of God to the outside world is lost. In the land, if they want to leave, they can stay." To Shang Yan's surprised look, he softly explained, "The matter of the lost land has been resolved, and the people in the divine world will not do the same thing as before. One thing that Julu hasn't said is that the population of the world is no longer 1 or 2 of the former, and the seal of the lost land is now broken, and the next generation of the world will no longer be a natural unsullied body. Naturally, also they will no longer be xenophobic, and they hope that these ascendants can stay and develop together with the people of the divine realm. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 976. However, with the previous one, the ascendants were hostile to people in the divine realm. How could they believe them? Yan Ji nodded. They have already done everything they want, my companions, they will not stay here. This is a place where ascension is not welcome. 9 delusions stopped talking. It was a chant, looking at him now obviously not in a normal state or in an abnormal state. It seemed to be a third personality split, and he couldn't speak well. He was still a little confused, and asked him, "Totem on your forehead, what is the connection to the tree in the seal of the lost land?" Julu's eyes glanced at the snoring beast in Yan's arms. He distrusted and extremely vigilantly at Shang Yang and said softly, "It doesn't matter, I told you yes, the magic heart is in my body, I just seal the tree in my body." Yan Song glared at him, suddenly realized. She finally understood why, when she felt like she was about to explode from the ground, those crazy enchantments suddenly burst into another direction. It turned out that this guy devoured the ancestors' magic source. Yan Ji saw him looking at him with a warm face, his eyes were almost covered with a layer of warm water, and when he was holding her, a warm sun reflected in his eyes, kind and warm. Such 9 delusions are simply amazing. Yanj remembered that even when the two were closest, this guy was still thinking about absorbing the magic in her body. Why now, he became such an attitude to her? Too abnormal, must have demon. Yanj thought for a while, and tentatively asked him, "Who are you now? Julu? Or Magic Heart?" "I'm Ziobai," the man replied without hesitation, and he continued to say, "I'm Ziobai, your little bai." He uttered this kind of words in a serious manner. Yan Ji was not touched at all, she was really goosebumps. What is Ziobai's name? After all, he was called Ziobai in the past, but he just wanted to use such a friendly nickname to decompress it. After all, his momentum still swallowed her. In other words, he took the initiative to admit that he was her little white. It is ridiculous. She and he knew that the title was a joke she couldn't seduce. What's wrong with this guy's head? She stared at him and asked, "Where has Jula gone? And where is the second personality in Jula's body?" The man who claims to be a little white, when he glanced at the sleepy guy in Yanj's arms, his paw caught on Yanj's chest, and he immediately frowned, reaching for the little guy in Yanj's arms, holding it tight lips in his arms. The little boy twisted his dissatisfied, but because he was too sleepy, he opened his eyes and stared at the man stupidly, then closed his eyes immediately, his 2 paws stuck to his eyes, hesitated, and nestled in the man snoring in his arm nest. Yan Ji thought that this little guy would only rely on her, but he did not expect to have an enemy who killed it, and he did not even resist. When he was surprised, he felt discouraged. He really gave him so much delicious food. The man ignored the stupid coquettish in his arms, staring at Yanj, and continued to say, "The 9 delusions are me, and that demon heart is also me. Ah Yan, you don't have to doubt, I am your little white." After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 977. It is okay for a man not to say such words. When he said such words, the skepticism of Yanj even worse. No matter whether it is 9 delusions or demon hearts, there is no desire for love. Not to be controlled by her, she never shakes them a little willpower. Now, the man even said that he was her little white. Which guy is wrong with this guy? She knew that she just asked as much as she wanted. If a man wanted to tell her, she would definitely say it, but she wouldn't say anything about her. So Yan Ji simply didn't tangle in this matter, but asked him, "Why does Xiao Meng have no heart?" Its heart was really taken away by you. It's very strange how the unintentional Xiaomeng can live like no one else. The man replied, it's heartless. 3 words, saying nothing means not saying. Yan Song frowned, what is it? Is it a devouring beast? The man nodded, and when Yan Ji looked puzzled, he added, it has degenerated a few times and is no longer strong. Sing silently. This little guy is a devouring beast? She felt her cognition had been impacted. The other ascended men who were sacrificed into the lost land did not find the source of magical energy under the ground, and there was no trace at all. Even sacrifice, there will be so little trace of the soul. But she didn't find it? Is it possible that so many ascended people were eaten by the devouring beasts? Degradation. She understood the word. For example, if they are born with spiritual wisdom, once they have no soul source to supplement their vitality, they can only rely on degradation to maintain their lives. Less than a last resort, no one is willing to take the road of degradation. Swallowing the beast like this can also be regarded as putting himself to death. Yan Ji's eyes narrowed, his eyes to the devouring beast in the man's arms. Is this the devouring beast, the one that has vengeance with her? Take advantage of it now? Or, while the beast was asleep, she took her little friends away with her, and it would not be within her concern to devour the heavenly beast to harm the gods. Of course, she was eager to swallow the heavenly beast to turn the scourge of this divine world upside down. So Yanj didn't continue to discuss this kind of problem with the man, she turned to find her little friends. Everyone worked together to find the boundary lake in this lost land. This world lake is located under a sealed source and has never been used. Therefore, all the conditions in Jehu are still unknown, which small world will go through Jehu, and what kind of dangers are inside the martyrdom that shuttles, everyone knows. Even so, everyone didn't mean to hesitate. Immediately, several people volunteered, I can go and try what is dangerous in the martyrs in this lake. Passing through the Jehu Pass, if it can pass smoothly, sometimes it takes a month or 2 to reach another Jehu, but sometimes it takes a year or 2, or a century or 1,000 years. No one wants to wait here, everyone is more willing to go on an adventure in person. So everyone simply discussed the possibility of entering the boundary lake together, and many people also brought out their own flying instruments. It was during this deliberate effort that the people of the divine realm had sent all the ascensors they had detained here. Check the number of people, even 40 people here, a total of 109 people. For thousands of years, the number of people who have soared into the realm of God is unknown, but now, there are only more than 100 people. Although everyone has the joy of the rest of the disaster, they also have the anger and hatred of the people in the divine realm. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 978. 10 people like Zi didn't think about leaving the realm of God. In the future, there will be ascension on this plane, and their bodies have been transformed, and now they can only absorb the spirit of the gods to practice, so they want to stay here, to attract those later ascension. Lest those people be treated as worms by those in the divine realm again, because there is no one to answer in this place. These people want to gain a foothold in the realm of God, not only the difficulty of cultivation, but also the strangeness and ridiculous eyes of those in the realm of God. It takes a lot of perseverance and endurance to bear weight before they become stronger, not to mention that they also want to protect those who are latecomers. Yan Ji heard these people's decisions and said after a brief silence, I stay with you. So the effort of this meeting, there are constantly people asking to stay. However, in a blink of an eye, more than 80 people confirmed their stay, and the rest were willing to explore whether the martyrdom of Jehu Lake could pass. After this matter was negotiated, Yan Ji simply took everyone to build a mountain gate in this lost power, and split a cliff with the man's unedged sword. On the cliff are the 3 characters of Yan Zhilang Fifeng Guo, Ding Tianmen. Taken from the Human Victory. When Yang and the crowd were setting up the mountain gate with great enthusiasm, they did not know that the divine realm was in turmoil. Newborn babies are not unsullied, and everyone does not seem to be smooth when they practice. There was never a demon in the spirit world, and they were surprised to find that now they have a demon breeding in their hearts. Many people have failed to qualify, and have almost gone into trouble. Yang is not very clear about the outside things. These ascended people must practice before they can stay. Yang does not want to use the previous magic Dan to help everyone to reform their bodies. This road. There is no spirit washing water in the lost land. Yang heard that there were not only a flying pool, but also a spirit washing water, in several tribes, and he thought about visiting the tribes. What she did not expect was that before taking action, the elders of the spirit snakes immediately came to express their willingness to associate with Dingtianmen, and her own spiritual pool was willing to provide Dingtianmen for free. Yan Ji saw the elders of the spirit snake tribe immediately looked at Julu after saying this. I knew it, and I thought it was a mismatch. During this time, the Dingtian gate was under construction, and Yanj was as busy as everyone else, but when he turned around, he could always see a man in white holding a black swallowing heavenly beast standing silently. On her side, the fluttering white man stood beside her, almost as strong as a poplar. Yan Ji knew this guy's weight in the divine realm, and he was willing to come to her to stand guard, and of course she would not stupidly drive him away. After sending away the elders of the spirit snake clan, Yan Ji then went to the man. Without waiting for the words to be published, the man has taken the initiative to explain, the spirit of the snakes is the most likely to breed the demon, and I can help them solve it. This is why the spirit snakes are willing to provide a soul-washing pool. So what is the reason for this man? Yanj heard the words silent, and asked him after a while, are you not going to preach the sermon? You are a Buddha, and now there are demons everywhere in the realm of God. If you come forward, you can help them settle down. The man nodded. Okay. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 979. This good word makes Yanj feel inexplicable. She simply said, thank you for this time. On the opening ceremony of Dingtianmen, I invite you to be a good guest. It is good. Yanj looked up and smiled at him, are you saying everything I say? The man stared at Yan Ji with a smile, and the pair of Yutan eyes seemed to have fine starlight, gentle and stunned. Yan Ji stared at him like this, and when his face was hot, he bowed his head. He whispered, well. The song with the head down asked a little puzzled, why? Because I'm your little white. Words of song. This sentence succeeded in completely destroying the atmosphere brewed between the two people. Hell only believe what he said. Yan Ji raised his curiosity and asked him, where's your fox fur coat? Why haven't you seen it recently? The man looked at the song and said softly, it has become a strip and needs to be repaired to wear it. He did not wait for the words to respond, and then said, do you like that dress? If you like it, I will sew it up and show it to you. Words of song. She finally remembered that his fox fur coat had been smashed into a strip by her feather duster. Because of this, she also ignored the man who said that she liked to wear it to her, rather than the bachelor idea that should be given to her for 100 years. After the people washed their muscles, they began to meditate one by one. After they finally reached the first state, the opening ceremony of Dingtianmen opened lively. The worm in the eyes now wants to be a human. From the perspective of everyone in the world, this Dingtianmen is just a joke. They are willing to talk about the joke in Dingtianmen when they are bored. Running around, it's too shameless after all. It is still the fact that several families have sent an elder to walk across the field in the face of Julu. Because of this, the opening ceremony of Dingtianmen was very deserted. From beginning to end, it was the self-awareness of these people. Everyone is very happy. From now on, in this world, there is finally a place for them to rise. After that, they will work hard to cultivate, and one day, sooner or later, the people in this world will no longer be despised by their ascension. Including Lian Yanj, the 110 people who founded the Stingtian Gate each wrote their own names on the Chaotian Cliff of Dingtianmen, using this as a starting point to write the future. After the ceremony, Yan Ji found out that the man had put the devouring beast in her arms into her arms again. Yanj is not stupid, and immediately understood that the man was leaving. During this time, although there was little talk between the two people, as long as she turned around, he would be behind her. She is used to this kind of life, and although she knew he would always leave, she was really weird at this day. She helped swallow the heavenly beast in her arms and asked him, "Are you going back to the divine house?" The man nodded and said to her, "What are your plans?" Yan Ji's eyes widened and she didn't understand what the man meant. Of course she wanted to revive Dingtianmen with everyone. But to the man's gaze, between light and flint, Yan Ji suddenly understood what he meant. The method she practiced is a demon's method. Maybe these people don't care about her now. What about the newcomers? Between immortals and magic, there is always a clear watershed. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 980. If it's an ordinary demon, it's true that the practice of singing is too evil. Even if she can guarantee that she won't learn from other people's practice in the future, who can rest assured? Yan Ji has seen too many of these things. She can actually understand the concerns of others. I had been immersed in how to grow Dingtianmen before, and didn't think much about it. At the moment, she was reminded by the man that she was so impressed. So after a moment of silence, Yan Song looked up and smiled at the man, "Thank you for this time." The man stretched out his hand, and seemed to be trying to swallow the hair of the beast in his arms. Yanj was about to take back her hand, but the man's hand had quickly pressed on her hand. She looked up at him. He had no expression on his face, and looked down like he was swallowing the heavenly beast. She shrank her hands and did not retract, so she looked down and waited for him to speak. But after waiting for a long time, I didn't hear him speak, just when the words moved his lips and wanted to say goodbye to the sky. He suddenly lowered his head and kissed her forehead. "It's fast, like a dragonfly." Yan Ji didn't respond, and he had recovered as before, keeping the same posture. "It's fast, it's almost like nothing happened just now." Words of song. She felt that in accordance with this man's sister-in-law approach, this man was definitely the rhythm of loneliness and old age. However, after another thought, this guy looks good and has a noble identity. Where can he use his sister to lie? He will lie there casually, and there will be countless sister papers to provide a variety of one-stop services. So although I wanted to vomit, Yanj endured. She looked up and stared at him. What does this mean? The man's face is thick and his ears are not red. Even the expression on his face is the same as it is on the day, but he just dodges slightly when he looks at the words of the song, "Ian, do you want to leave the realm with me?" Yanj stared at him in surprise. "Are you in the realm of God? Do you want to leave? Will people in the realm of God let you leave?" "No," he replied simply, "but I think, if you are willing to be with me, we can leave here and find a few places." "I don't want to." Yan Ji was more crisp and clear than him. She looked up and looked at the three words Dingtianmen above the artificial cliff that was set up in the lost land. "If I guard here." The man looked with her gaze, his face was ashamed, as if he had forgotten to speak, and for a long time, he said, "They will never need you again." Yan Ji laughed, the sun fell on her face, and her bright and cheerful face was bright and relieved. "At that time, I will leave." After a pause, he said, "Anyway, I ought to be long ago." My only wish is that the ascendants are no longer a worm-like fate in the realm of God. If this can be achieved, I will be sacrificed. I will have no complaints. Regret. Probably feeling that she was talking too sensational, she laughed, tilted her head, and smiled and said to him, "Someone should be sacrificed, not me but also others. I am glad that it is me, and that my own sacrifice is worth it." The man pursed his lips, slowly let go of Yan Ji's hand, bowed his head, and asked Yan Ji, "Does my dress look good?" Words of song, which pot does not mention which pot. She actually noticed his clothes as soon as she met today. It's that white fox fur coat. Too special, nobody will notice. Chapter 981 After Ascension. Yan even heard many people talking quietly behind him, discussing whether he was wearing the clothes today. Hearing his question at this moment, he saw him looking at him with anticipation, and had to lower his head to look at his so-called clothes. Probably the place that was smashed by her feather duster could not be recovered, so he simply stitched all the fox skins together by hand with needle and thread. He is obviously not a delicate man with inherent beauty, and can't look straight at the manual work. Fox fur should have been moist and smooth. But the clothes on his body are now crumpled and he won't say anything. When he was sewing, a lot of hair was sewn in by the needle and thread, resulting in a smooth hair, a hair crooked. To be honest, she didn't look at it for a whole morning. Always wanted to remind him to change clothes. But he was afraid to hurt his self-confidence. After all, it is not easy to sew such tattered clothes that can only be used as cloth strips. And he is a deity, he used to wear Bai Tongtian, and everyone followed suit. This time he dressed like this, maybe he can lead the trend. So even if he wears such a dress, he can blind his eyes, and Yan Ji thinks of leaving soon, he can only say with conscience, "It looks good, looks good." He laughed when he heard. There is no laughter, but the facial features wane her, delicate eyebrows, a beautiful smile that makes him forget everything. Yan Ji was a little awkward, and he seemed to believe her. What a naive and confident little boy. So she simply shifted the topic, "Will you come here when you go back? There is A and Buddha respected by everyone in Dingtianmen. At the beginning, the days will definitely be much better." In fact, the words Yanj have countless selfishness, she is testing his attitude. "They won't do that kind of thing again," the man said softly to Yanj, "and will not put Dingtianmen in his eyes." After a pause, he also said, "People in the realm of God are too busy looking after themselves. After all, the source seal is broken. Although natural pollution-free body has various advantages, it also has disadvantages. It is like flowers that have never experienced any setbacks in a greenhouse, and can't bear a little wind and rain." Yan Ji nodded to understand. He looked at her and said, "I'm leaving." Words, "Oh." But he hadn't left yet, still nailed in place, staring at her deeply. In fact, during this time, he always looked at her with such affectionate eyes. If Yanj hadn't remembered the past, and his temperament had changed, he would have thought he really liked her. Whether this man appears as a third personality or not, Yan Ji is very skeptical and very vigilant. However, she responded with a smile to this kind of gaze he cast, "If you have time in the future, you can often sit at Dingtianmen, and they like you especially like me." But the man gave no face at all. "I don't need their like. He likes the song and song very much, and thinks that he is like him." The man paused and said, "Don't you really leave?" For Yanj, the host's wish is the most important, so she still shook her head without hesitation this time. "When they don't need me, I want to go to Jehu to help you explore the way." "Okay." The man paused and said, "Would you like to kiss me?" Words of song.